Welcome all the students to the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University Management Program, MBA program. And today's topic is going to be the working capital management. In that working capital management, we know that there are three important components of working capital management, that is cash management, receivables management, that is accounts receivables management, and inventory management. So today we are going to discuss about the importance of cash management and what is the meaning of cash management and how to manage the cash efficiently and effectively. We all know that cash is the most important asset for the operations of the business firms. So without cash, we cannot carry on any other operations. So the business firm should always maintain sufficient cash reserves because the excessive cash will remain idle. So if it remains idle, we will not get any return on that, and the shortage of cash will disrupt the operations of the firm. Normally, every business firm will hold around 1 to 3% of its assets in the form of cash to enable itself to discharge its routine obligations, to make different types of payments towards salaries, to pay bills, day-to-day expenses, repayment of loans, dividends, interest, etc. And at the same time, the cash has to be maintained, and at the same time, they also have to enable its liquidity and paying capacity, so for which a sound cash management is necessary. So we will try to first understand what is the nature of cash, what is the meaning of cash, and how to manage the cash. So cash in a very narrow sense, it means it refers to all sorts of liquid forms in the form of coins, currency, checks, demand deposits in the banks. So in a very narrow sense, cash means only cash in hand and cash at bank. But now in a very broader sense, in a broader terms, cash encompasses all forms of money that can be quickly converted into cash, including near cash assets like marketable securities, time deposits, treasury bills, commercial papers. Everything which can be quickly converted into cash will come under the ambit of cash. So in a very broader terms, cash includes cash and cash equivalents which can be quickly converted into cash. Now what is cash management? So whatever the cash the firm is holding, so it involves cash management basically involves in minimizing the idle cash without impairing liquidity of a firm, and also includes managing cash flows into and out of the firm. So how the financial manager is able to manage the cash inflows and cash outflows of the firm, and what are all the various cash inflows within the firm, and cash balances which are held by the firm at a point of time by financing deficit in case if there is a cash shortage. So how to fund that cash shortage, or if there are any surplus cash, and how to invest that surplus cash in short-term securities so that a return can be earned by the firm. So basically cash management involves in minimizing the idle cash without impairing liquidity, and at the same time not losing on profitability. So that is basically the basic aim of cash management. Now what are the motives for holding cash? So basically there are four important motives of holding cash. So they are broadly classified as transaction motive, precautionary motive, speculative motive, and compensatory motive. So first one is transaction motive. So for meeting all types of transactions, so firm has to hold some amount of cash. So that is transaction motive for meeting all types of transactions, purchasing of materials, payment towards materials, then salaries, incurring different types of operating expenses. All this comes under transaction motive. The second motive of holding cash is precautionary motive. So in case of any emergencies or any unforeseen situations, so the firm should hold some amount of cash. So that is because of precautionary motive. So precautionary motive is nothing but in case of there is any untoward situation, then how to meet that requirement. So for which some amount of cash is held, that is called as precautionary motive. Then the third one is speculative motive. The speculative motive is nothing but now whenever there is any purchasing of materials on bulk basis, so we will be earning some amount of discount on that. So to avail such type of opportunities, or if there is any sudden demand in the product or in the case of certain services, then there is a need to hold some amount of cash, and that is on account of speculative motive. The fourth one is compensatory motive. So compensatory motive is usually applicable for banks, where banks render different types of services. They provide different types of services like the services like sending SMS messages, then giving checkbooks. Now for all sort of services they have to incur some amount of cash for such type of transactions. So whatever the minimum balances which are maintained by the customers, so that is used for not for any other purposes, that is the main motive for the bank to hold that minimum balance, that is to meet their different types of expenses, and that is for called as compensatory motive. So compensatory motive which is applicable for the banks. So these are all the four important motives of holding cash. So basically there are four motives of holding cash: transaction motive, precautionary motive, speculative motive, and compensatory motive. Then coming to what are the objectives of cash management. So the cash has to be maintained, or it has to be managed to maintain some optimum cash balance, so that the cash can be used to meet any type of cash payment needs. So objectives of cash management includes to meet any sort of cash payment needs, to maintain some minimum amount of cash balance to which is held as precautionary motive, and meeting the payments schedule. So whenever there is an requirement, or whenever there is an day-to-day operations to meet all types of payment schedules, cash has to be held. So to meet the payment schedule, to minimize the funds committed to cash balances, to have minimum cash balances as idle funds, because idle funds does not fetch any return. So the fund should not be either too high or too low. So high level of cash involves large funds will remain idle, so which is a loss to the firm. At the same time, low level of cash also will lead to failure to meet the payment schedule on time, which will result in loss of goodwill, loss of reputation, loss of customers if you are not able to meet the payment schedule. So the cash should not be held either too high or too level, but it should be optimum. So that is the basic objective of cash management, to maintain optimum cash balance. To maintain optimum cash balance which is neither too high neither too low. So there must be an adequate cash balance, and the surplus cash should be invested in certain investment avenues, and the very low cash should be held as idle cash. So that is, we have to maintain, the firms have to maintain optimum cash balance. Now basically there are four pillars of cash management which are called as facets of cash management, or they are called as four facets of cash management. So the first one is to planning the cash balances. So that is called as cash planning. So for which we can use different types of tools and techniques are available. So how to plan our cash requirements, so that is cash planning. Then how to manage the cash flow. So cash flows management it is called as. So managing the cash inflows and managing the cash outflow, so that is called as cash flows management. Then determining the optimum cash balance. So how to know how much amount of cash has to be maintained, which is neither too high or not too low, but it is adequate in the sense that means it is called as optimum cash balance. How to determine optimum cash balance, for which we can use certain cash management models are available, with the help of which we can determine the optimum cash balance. Then in case if there is any surplus funds, so how to invest that surplus cash is also one of the important facet of cash management. So these are the four facets of cash management, or we can say these are the four important pillars of cash management. So these are all the four important perspectives of cash management which has to be looked upon by the organizations to manage the cash balances. Now what are the various factors which determine the cash needs? So the cash requirements differ from organization to organization, and how to determine how much is the cash requirement. So what are the various factors which have to be considered for determining the cash needs or the cash requirements? Now it is an agreed statement that there is no perfect synchronization between cash inflows and cash outflows. So the cash inflows occur at different points of time and cash outflows occur at different points of time. So there is no perfect synchronization of cash inflows and cash outflows. So we have to identify what are all the cash requirements, what are all the inflows and what are all the outflows, and as much as possible we should try to match the inflows and outflows so that the optimum cash is maintained. Then there are different types of costs which are incurred if the cash is not maintained properly, which are called as short costs. So those short costs include cost of transaction. So for carrying out different types of transactions, costs are incurred. So we have to understand what are those different types of transaction costs. And whenever the cash is raised from outside or taken as a loan, then there is a cost of borrowing in terms of interest payment. So that also has to be identified. That is also one of the important factor which determine the cash requirements. What is the cash of borrowing cost, it is called as. Then cost of determination of credit rating. Now in case if the firm is not able to maintain the cost or maintain the cash balances, or if they're not able to meet the requirements on time or not making the payment schedule or on time, then there is a loss of credit rating. So there is a cost which is incurred for reduction of credit rating or loss of goodwill or loss of reputation. So cost of determination of credit rating. Then cost of loss of cash discount. So if on account of not having adequate cash, so there is every possibility that whenever we will not be able to make bulk purchases and we will not be able to avail the cash discounts which are available on bulk purchases. So that is called as cost of loss of cash discount. And on account of not meeting the requirements on time, not making the payments on time, so there is also will result in penalty rates. So that is called as cost of penalty rates. So if you are defaulting on the payment of the loan, or if the not payment of interest or dividend, then it will result in cost of penalty rates. So these are all the various types of short costs which also have to be considered at the time of determining the cash requirements. Then if you are also having surplus cash, that also will result in surplus cash balance cost in the form of loss of interest, the loss of return. If that amount would have been invested somewhere, we would have got interest on that, we would have got return on that. So we have lost that return or lost that interest, that will result in surplus cash balance costs. Then management costs. Even for managing these cash balances also we have to incur different types of cost. That is, we need to have an department, we need to have the recovery people, we need to have the department to manage the cash balances. So those are all comes under management costs. So these are all the various factors that determine the cash needs, which have to be borne in mind by the company or by the organization at the time of determining the cash balances, or at the time of determining what is your optimum cash balances. Then how to manage the cash. So managing the cash basically involves two important aspects, that is how we are able to accelerate the cash collections, how we are able to speed up the cash, how we are able to collect the cash from the various people or from the various parties, how quickly we are able to control, we are able to collect the cash. So accelerating cash collections, at the same time how we are able to control your disbursements. So whatever the cash outflows or the cash disbursements, how we are able to control, how we are able to manage our disbursements. So these two are the important things in managing of cash. So accelerating the cash collections and controlling the disbursements, how we are able to control the cash outflows. So how we are well qualified or well versed with the disbursements of the cash, and how quickly we are able to accelerate our cash collections. So these two will basically involve managing of cash. So managing of cash basically involves accelerating the cash collections, speeding up the cash collections, and controlling the disbursements, that is managing the disbursements. Now for this cash management, there are various tools which are available to determine the cash balances, and also to maintain optimum cash balance there are certain cash management models are available. So by using these tools and techniques we can manage the cash balances. So the very important cash management tool is cash budget. So what is the meaning of cash budget? So cash budget is basically a short term management tool which will forecast the cash receipts and cash payments. So cash budgeting is a short term cash forecasting tool. So basically which aims at determining the cash, what are all the cash receipts and what are all the cash payments which will be projected or which can be forecasted over a period of time. So it is basically based on what are all the expected cash inflows, that is in the form of cash receipts, and cash expenses or cash outflows for a given period of time. So it is generally prepared for a period of 3 to 6 months. So however, though it can be prepared on weekly, daily or monthly basis also, depending on the requirement of the firm. So if they require, they can also prepare on a weekly basis or a daily basis also, but usually the cash budgets are prepared for a period of 3 to 6 months, which can be where we are going to project the cash inflows and cash outflows in the form of cash receipts and cash payments over a period of time, that is over a period of next forthcoming 3 months or the next 6 months. So it is basically a short term cash forecasting tool which is very popular and which is usually used by all the organizations. Almost every organization uses this cash budget, and it is a short term cash management tool, and it is a cash forecasting tool where cash receipts and cash payments can be forecasted over a period of time, over a period of 3 to 6 months. Now what is the meaning of this cash budget? So cash budget is basically a statement. So it is a statement showing the estimated cash inflows and cash outflows over a planning period. So in order to prepare the cash budget, we should know what is our planning period for a short period of 3 to 6 months. So during that, over that planning period of 3 to 6 months, we can project what are all the cash inflows and cash outflows which are going to take place during that particular period. Now the basic purpose of this cash budget is basically a control tool. It's a planning and control tool which is used to forecast the cash receipts and cash payments. Now how to estimate this cash requirements? The estimating the cash requirements includes, we have to plan all our short term financial planning. So what are all the various short term plans where finances are required has to be projected and has to be planned in that cash budget. Then we have to schedule all the payments in respect of acquiring the capital goods. So in case in the next forthcoming period, if you want to purchase, if the firm want to purchase or if they want to invest in any capital expenditure like purchasing of a machinery or purchasing of an equipment, so they have to plan ahead and they have to schedule even the payments which are going to take place and which are going to be shown in the cash budget. Then planning and phasing the purchase of raw materials. So for meeting the production policies or for meeting your production process, the purchasing of raw materials is a must. So they have to plan and phase out how the purchase of raw materials are going to take place, and how we are going to plan our credit terms also has to be planned ahead for the purchase of raw materials. Then evolving and implementing credit policies. So in the cash budget, even the implementing and evolving of credit policies also is a part of cash budget. So whenever we are selling goods on credit, so the sales can be either on cash basis or either on credit basis. So cash basis, we are going to receive cash immediately, but whereas in case of credit sales, the cash will be received based on the credit terms or the credit policies. So accordingly, even credit policies also have to be evaluated and has to be implemented, and accordingly they have to be incorporated in the cash budget. And checking and verifying the accuracy of long-term cash forecasting. So how we are going to accurately prepare the cash budget for long-term cash forecasting for meeting your long-term requirements. So how we are going to check and verify the accuracy of your long-term cash forecasting is also a part of cash budget. So for estimating the cash requirements, all these things have to be planned ahead, and accordingly the cash budget will be prepared. Now what is the procedure involved for the preparation of a cash budget? Now basically there are two important factors or the two important things required for preparing a cash budget. The first one is selection of the period of budget. So what is the time, how much time, what is the period for which you want to prepare the budget? Is it 3 months or is it 6 months now, or is it 2 months? What is the selection period? So what is the period for which we want to prepare the budget? That should be clear. Then another second important factor is, now what are all those cash inflows and outflows which are arising out of operations or out of your financial activities or out of your investing activities, that is purchasing of fixed assets or purchasing of machinery or equipment. All these also have to be taken into account. So what are all the cash inflows which are arising from operations, all your normal operating activities, the inflows and outflows. At the same time, what are all the inflows and outflows arising out of your financial activities, like payment of dividend or payment of interest, all that. Then investing activities activities will include what are all the various activities pertaining to the purchasing or sale of fixed assets. So that also has to be taken into account. So these are the two important factors on the basis of which the cash budget can be prepared. So the cash budget requires one is period, that is what is the time for which we want to prepare the budget, and what are all the cash inflows and outflows which are going to have a bearing on the cash budget. So that has to be taken into account, that has to be considered. Now this is a small example of how a cash budget is prepared. So this problem basically involves, so the problem is ABC Traders prepares a cash budget for the months of January, February and March 2025. So they want to prepare a cash budget for a period of 3 months. So the information given is opening cash balance on 1st January is 10,000, which is given. So they have cash sales as well as credit sales. So cash sales where cash is received immediately in the same month, whereas credit sales will depend on what is the time, that means what is the how the sales are going to be collected. So credit sales are in the 3 months January, February and March, and credit sales are collected 1 month after sale. So that means that the whatever the sales which we have the firm has made in the month of January, so that amount of 30,000 which was a credit sale in the January, that will be received in February. So that means we are giving to the customers 1 month of credit time. We are giving credit sales are collected, so we are giving them 1 month credit period. So the February sales will be received in March and March sales will be received in April. So that is how the amount will be collected on account of credit sales. Then they are having purchases which are purely done on cash basis only. So there are cash purchases where cash has to be paid immediately in the same month, and wages also have to be paid immediately in the same month, and rent paid every month is 3,000. So for the 3 months they have to pay, which is a cash outflow in the month of February. Every month January, February, March they have to pay rent every month. So this is the information available. So from this information we are asked to prepare a cash budget for January, February and March. So look at the solution, how the cash budget is prepared for the 3-month period January, February and March. So basically for the purpose of preparing this cash budget, we need to know what are the cash receipts, what are all the cash inflows, what are all the various transactions on account of which we are receiving cash, how cash is coming in, what are the various transactions where cash is coming in or coming, that is called as cash receipts. So in the month of January, so we have an opening cash balance of 10,000, and there are cash sales where payment will be received immediately after the sale, whereas on account of credit sales, as I just now told you, so whatever the January sales, the amount will be recovered, will be collected in the month of February, and February sales will be received in March accordingly. So March sales, they will receive the payment in April. Now here January it is left blank because we don't have December sales. So there is no information pertaining to December sales. So in case if December sales are given, then we would have taken December sales would have been received in the month of January. So after that we have to add up only for the first month 50,000. Then we should not add February and March, that will be done later on. Now the next step is we have to calculate what are all the cash payments. So payments are nothing but what are all the various transactions where our cash is going out in those 3 respective months. It could be on account of salaries, it could be on account of credit purchases, or it could be on account of any asset is purchased in those months, or any interest has to be paid in those months. So basically cash payments are nothing but what are all the cash disbursements we are going to make in those 3 respective months. So here we have cash purchases, so there is no credit purchases, they are all cash purchases only, where the payment has to be made immediately in those 3 months. Then wages also have to be paid immediately in those 3 months only. Then rent or at the rate of 3,000 per month has to be paid immediately. So here there is no credit purchases, there is no lag in payment of wages, there is no lag in payment of rent. So everything is on cash basis only. So we have to total it up, what are the total payments in the month of January. So in the month of January the total payments are given. So next step is we have to calculate the closing balance. What is the closing balance of cash every month? So that is done by matching your total receipts with that of your total payments. So the total receipts minus your total payments, that will give you the closing balance of cash. So the closing balance of cash for the end of January month will automatically become the opening balance of cash for the next month. So in the month of January the total receipts are 50,000 and the total payments are 33,000. So accordingly there is a closing balance of 17,000. So that will become the opening balance for the next month, that is in the month of February. So in the month of February we are starting with an opening balance of 17,000, and along with the various receipts which have received in that particular month, add all that, that will give you the total receipts. Then again match the total payments in the month of February, and then you will get a closing balance of cash which will be the opening balance of cash for the next month, that is in the month of March. So then again in the month of March, along with the opening balance of cash, we will also add all the cash receipts in the month of March and match it with all the cash payments in the month of March, and that will give you an closing balance of cash, and that will become the opening balance of cash for the next month, that is for the month of April. So now what do we understand from this cash budget? So the firm maintains a positive cash balance in all the 3 months. That means now in all these 3 months there were sufficient receipts for that company, for that organization, where they are having sufficient cash to meet their cash payments, leaving an closing balance, a positive closing balance. Then at the same time the cash position is also very impactful. That means it is also having a sufficient cash balances in every month, and there is no cash deficit, indicating that the company is having a good liquidity situation. That means they are able to manage their cash balances very properly, and their cash management is very effective, and they doesn't have any cash deficit, which shows that they are having liquid management. So which shows that they are able to strike a balance between, they are able to balance between liquidity and profitability. So that is the conclusion we can draw from this cash budget. Then how to manage these cash flows? So management of cash flows, as I explained earlier, it is nothing but how we are accelerating our cash collections and how we are slowing down our cash payments. So basically now every organization have to focus on these two things, that is how to accelerate the cash collections. Accelerate the cash collections is nothing but how to speed up the cash collections so that we are able to have the cash. So that can be possible through prompt billing. So immediately after the sale is over, when we do prompt billing and encouraging the customers to make the payment before the due date, where cash discounts can be allowed. So that will enable the cash collections, and that will accelerate the cash collections. That is having a prompt billing and cash allowing them cash discounts on prompt payment or before the due date payments are done. Then minimizing the deposit float. Deposit float is nothing but, now whenever we are going to receive the checks, whenever the customer writes the checks or whenever the payments are done through checks, there is a lot of delay in depositing the check, in clearing the checks and getting the check, clearing the check and getting the amount from the bank. All this is called as, all the sum total of all these is called as deposit float. So how best we can minimize this deposit float? So the maximum deposit float will be increasing your cash requirement. So we have to minimize your deposit float. That is one of the method where you can accelerate your cash collections. Then we can also go for concentration banking. Concentration banking is nothing but, now in case of outstation checks, where the checks are from outside, so it will take lot of time to recover the amount from outstation checks. Rather, if you can concentrate on depositing checks in that particular location or in those respective places only where the banks are having branches, and requesting them to deposit in those banks of those branches, so that the clearing can be done quickly, so that it will accelerate the cash collections. Then nowadays there are a lot of cash management services which are offered by banks, like net banking, then RTGS. So there are different methods of payments which can be done by the customers. So focusing on that also will accelerate the cash collections. So these are all the different ways and means through which we can accelerate the cash collections and speed up the cash, and so that we will be able to manage our cash inflows properly. Then what are the various methods of slowing down the cash payments? That is also one of the angle of management of cash flows. So how we are concentrating on accelerating cash collections, so we also have to concentrate on how best we can slow down the cash payments. So that can be done through various ways, like paying on the last date. So now as much as possible we have to make the payment on the due date or on the last last date of the schedule, so that it will reduce our cash burden. Then as much as possible, try to make the payments only through centralized organization, centralized departments. So the should not be done through individual departments, it should be done only through centralized payments. Then making use of payment floats, whatever the payments which have to be done to the various parties, so as much as possible, if there are any due dates, then making use of that payment floats also will minimize your cash payments, will slow down your cash payments, and deferring the payments. So the payments, the salaries of this month can be paid next month, so like that we can defer the payments, so that also will slow down the cash payments. Then what are one of the important facet of cash management is also investing the surplus funds, where you can invest them in various avenues or in various money market instruments. These are all the various money market instruments like commercial paper, treasury bills, investing in mutual funds, investment in short term marketable securities. But at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that the investment also should be selected based on safety of the money, marketability, then yield, what is the return we are going to get, and we have to focus on short term maturity. So the cash management can be done by using various ratios, by calculating various ratios like current ratio, quick ratio, and what are our cash flows to current liabilities. Then how much is your coverage, how much amount is covered by current assets towards current liabilities, how quickly we are able to convert into cash, that is the cash turnover ratios, how much is the optimum cash balance, which can be determined through your various cash management models. So these are all the various ways through which we can manage, we can analyze the cash, and accordingly we can focus on cash management. So the one cash management is one of the very important tool for which the management have to focus on how best they can manage the cash balances and see that there is an optimum cash balance maintained. Thank you.